today with Emma Kappa, who's a nature and forest therapy guide, expressive artist, and founder of Creative Journeys in Nature. Hello, Emma.
So yeah, here in my garden in Totnes.
So you work with nature as part of your forest therapy. So can you tell us how nature is supporting your well-being at the moment?
Well, it's sort of ongoing and sort of deepening of the practice that I already offer to people, and you know, through my own delight, just daily walks. And it's been because of the lockdown, or they have a really nice way of saying it in the States. So shelter something sounds a lot nicer than lockdown. Yeah, I tend to be walking in the same place, and I'm also not going out to various different locations to scout routes for walks, because I'm not guiding any. So I'm getting to know this one particular route really well, and just finding that the familiarity of seeing these same trees and plants and watching them change through the spring, unfurling, is really comforting. And I think that's one of the things about nature, is it's got that comforting feeling because it's so familiar to us, right down to our core. So spending time and just really staying in the present and what I'm feeling, sensing, not feeling and telling myself stories about it, but just noticing the wind on my cheeks, and you know, the warmth of the sun on my shoulder at the moment, and yeah, following those little impulses that get you to stop somewhere. And we are being asked to stop a lot more these days, aren't we? Because we have to make space, so there's 2 meters when someone passes you, so there's more opportunity to stop and be with what's around you while you're there, standing there.
Yeah, and that's a good point actually. This seeing it, framing it in that way as an opportunity, and many people I know, and I've started to think of it this way as well, as a retreat time. And it's quite a nice positive way to put it. And yeah, this idea, I know you're very good at this idea of just not getting too much into the mental process with what you're looking at, just feeling into the sensations and being in the moment. So is that very much part of your forest therapy training, or is that something that you had before that you naturally...
I think there's definitely both. So from having a training and an interest as an artist in form and light and color, always been, you know, really enlivened and affected by color, and particularly in nature, like from even when I when I was at college doing my fine art degree, and the wandering out in nature and just seeing things and going, I could draw that, but there's no way I would get it as incredible as it is in this moment. And so this kind of capturing things in juxtaposition in that moment and having that eye on shape, form and color, I think it's always been there from that. And then because you're in that space, it's a different kind of responding to a mental sort of mathematical way of, you know, that we can spend our time in and working out how this can happen and why this is, rather than just appreciating what is and how it is in comparison with something next to it, just for its very being. And then I think with yoga, and then forest therapy training, of really becoming present in your senses even more in nature, and the standard sequence that I was taught through my training, that's deepened deepened it so that it becomes a more embodied experience. So like now I'm looking at ferns, and then I kind of can imagine being one. You know, my background becomes that wonderful, wobbly around a bit, you know, the long straight stem up the middle. And at the moment they're all unfurling at the tops. I don't know if you can see that. And so they've come from this real tight little curl right down at the bottom, and then gradually, you know, vertebrae by vertebrae, like you do in a yoga class, sort of unfurling and sort of feeling within, that reflection of movement. Even though it's, you know, it's not something you're watching in real time, you'd have to stand there for, you know, 24 hours or more to see some of it go. But in the imaginal sense of it and how it affects, it's really powerful. I think I've gone off question. My thing keeps falling over. So there we go.
I mean, that's nature, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Go with the flow. I think that's you know, what nature can teach us, isn't it? Like you say, with the ferns at the moment, that unfurling, we're all doing that, aren't we? In that way, we're all unfurling into ourselves, having to go with the flow, because that's all we can do at the moment. So that's kind of touching on my next question about how forests, or how people can use nature to assist their own well-being at this time. So just sort of start to touch on looking at nature for examples, or reflecting.
Yeah. So I mean, one of the main things, or the first things, that is witnessing beauty. To surround yourself, you know, even not in nature, but within your own space, with things that are beautiful to you, is uplifting. And you know, you look at a new carton, bread spread, whatever, and then so going out into nature, and which is inspired probably the pattern of what you've bought on your fabric of your clothes or whatever it is. Spending time just admiring it, and things that, you know, flowers, a type of tree, something that fills you with that kind of, wow, that is just so beautiful, is a really good place to start in nature connection. And just allowing yourself, it's very strong when we're affected by beauty. It changes immediately how you feel inside. It invites positivity and a kind of expansive state of mind, really. So that's one of the things with nature, and so much in that what nature can help us with our understanding of ourselves through looking at it. It's been a plant teacher for us, you know, since we first appeared on this planet. We didn't know what we were doing, you know, we grew up alongside it, and by watching what other things ate, we might have tried that. And so this whole sort of witnessing and watching is one of our earliest and known ways of learning. And it's also, so it's very accessible to everybody. So there's no stress. And it's also very, well, it's just disregarded, I think, a lot at the moment. You know, we're so focused on regurgitating intellectual knowledge and knowing stuff, and people feeling, well, I can't really know that plant because I don't know what it's called. But you know, there's other ways of knowing rather than just a name. I think the moment you've got a name on a plant or something, it puts a distance to you. It becomes boxed and a thing. And they're all so different, each fern to the next fern, each tree to the next tree. There's trees along the route that I take that I've bumped into friends that they've given names, but they're personal names. So there's one big oak tree that this lady called Lou calls Henry, and she always spends time with Henry on her walk along the riverside. And it's that kind of personable relationships that forest therapy and this practice of being in your senses and noticing invites. So that's how nature in this kind of relationship invitation. And so Henry, to her, she goes and leans on it. There's a particular branch that just feels really supportive and comforting. And yeah, and so that's that kind of beginnings and getting to know how nature can support us.
Yes, yeah, I really identify that. I mean, I do it in a sort of similar but different way, in that I see faces in trees, and but also, like, yeah, I use nature as a resource in my work with my coaching with people in nature. And really this time is deepening that understanding, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah, it's such a resource.
Yeah, it is back to that sort of, well, I'm calling it a sabbatical, where you're saying like a retreat, but it's time to really deepen into that knowing and learning of a place and a practice. Not everybody's quite so fortunate. Some people are working incredibly hard to keep us all those services going that we need for us for essential well-being. But yeah, to have time out and even 10 minutes, just taking a walk.
Yeah.
And not seeing it as exercise, but seeing it as just being. Yeah, just feeling into your feet, taking a nice deep breath, allowing yourself to be drawn to in a direction that feels right, rather than, oh, I can't go that way. Why? Try it. See what's over there that's calling you.
Yeah, it's that allowing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the forest therapy really helps when you come into your senses, and that feeling of, from just knowing, okay, when you're feeling your skin, say for instance, and you can feel it warm on this side and say cool on this side with the shade. And then, you know, after a while you'll be thinking, maybe this is getting a bit too hot if you're staying with that feeling, and so you'll automatically move a little bit so that there's a balance. And there's this kind of movement to find this balance, this place of comfort, this place of pleasure for our well-being, because that's where we grow best in all ways, just like a pot plant does. If it's sort of stuck in a really dry, overly hot place, it's going to really struggle. You know, it would much, and sort of, there's so many thoughts going through my head at the moment about, you know, this thing about struggling and striving, and, you know, but actually, you know, we do best when we are supported, loved, and following our instincts on what actually feels best rather than what we've been told is best. And I'm completely going off topic with this, but this, yeah.
No, yeah, that's, you know, I hear that. There's a lot about self-love, isn't there, at the moment? We're having to be with ourselves, and really there aren't as many distractions. Even when you go into nature, you're still with yourself. Your nature reflecting back at you, isn't it? So,
definitely that self-love is what we all need as a starting point, and is having this time just to take ourselves and find, you know, the beauty, and in the shady, the sort of maybe what could be perceived as a rotten side of a log is actually quite beautiful, you know. And so something that we might perceive as a bit rotten about us actually, you know, is part of us and quite beautiful. So that you're talking about going into nature and messages and metaphors in what you actually see, one of the aspects where you can take it into a therapy is it offers you these little metaphors and perspectives on your life.
Yes, and realizing that we're part of nature and that it isn't something separate. That, we're talking to ourselves.
We are. We are.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about a favourite place of yours in nature, and how that inspires you.
So at the moment, I'm doing a lot of, well, every day pretty much. I'm walking along the Totnes Riverside Path, and it's got a real mix of trees, but particularly the alders and the willows. And we've recently discovered there's these really old black poplars, which are quite rare, set back in this willow, what I'm calling the willow woods. And it's an area that gets flooded by the tide. So when it's high tide and the river's full, and then it comes down again. So there's always a change when you walk along there, because the river is at a different height. There's the light that's reflecting off it, where there's puddles, where there wasn't puddles, where you actually can't go somewhere because it's too deep, or where it's all pulled back vegetation and revealed something that you didn't see the day before. And in the willows have an amazing ability to, they don't have super strong roots, and they're often full. And so there's this whole area of these fallen willows, but they fall over and then they start to grow up again from that main trunk. And they're not the only tree that do this, but they've created all these wonderful little walkways through this wetlands, with the new growth going up that you can swing around. I mean, it's a perfect playground for the kid. And the kid, I mean, inside us as well. And there's little places where there's a forking of branches that create a natural little seat. And it's all full of spring flowers underfoot. And it's just off the path, so you can sort of be away from people walking by and just have this wonderful old time. And the willows themselves, this whole kind of falling down and then sprouting up, that metaphor, speaks to us in this time of things falling down and then still growing up in a new direction, and also having fallen down provided something incredible for something else to happen on it, like whether it's just us walking along it, or all the other lichens and the little creatures that are getting to live under that space now.
Wow.
So many metaphors to be found in the willows, and just quite a magical place.
Oh, I'd love to go there with you when all this is over.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about your work, your offerings.
So normally I offer regular wanders for well-being. I call them wanders for well-being because although they incorporate Shinrin-yoku, which is the forest bathing, forest therapy that I offer, a lot of people get confused with the term forest bathing and think that we're going wild swimming or being nudist in woods, which is neither. It's more about bathing in the atmosphere, like I was saying, and getting into your senses and feeling it in your body and across your body, and then building relationships with nature. So I have regular walks that I usually offer, and then I'm also doing collaborations, like with you, Claire. We have a plan to do a tree walk that we've had to put away. And that other side of that, we both love seeing faces and seeing these little spirits in the trees, don't we? So yes, and so the whole idea of the imaginal and telling the stories of these trees and the little beings that we might see in them, and the ones that live around them. We were going to do a wander like that, weren't we, for kids and adults?
Do that. And
we will do it.
Because for me, similar to you, it's bringing people joy, and that's part of my purpose. I know that's part of my purpose here through my work, is to spark that joy in other people. So I love working in that way, and I know we're on a similar wavelength, very similar wavelength, aren't we?
That playful. Playful. But there's so much to be learned in just playing. That it's one of the most effortless and fun ways to experience and get creative ideas and inspiration. I find. And with nature, you've just got this amazing partnership of something that's just living at different speeds and different times with you. So yeah, I've got my regular wanders for well-being, and then I'm also have my creative journeys in nature, and with intuitive art trails and the art of being, which again is more looking at making sort of ephemeral art, but again something that's in response to how you feel it inside, rather than that sort of Andrew Goldsworthy perfection of, you know, manipulating something into a line or something. I mean, it might be that you're moved to do a line of sticks, but it's more something spontaneous that you allow to flow through, and then might inspire some poetry, and from that there will be some revelations, some transformations, sometimes some really big aha moments as to what's going on in your life in this conversation between the natural world and the creative process and the storytelling power of poems, and then the sharing aspect of it. So the other side of the forest therapy walks and the art ones is the community and talking from the heart, really sharing on that level with people, as much as you want to as well. So there's everything is an invitation within these walks that I offer and weekends.
Amazing. And yeah, and I've been on your walks and experienced them for myself, and can vouch for how powerful they are. Yeah, such a gift. Yeah, the way you help people to notice, you know, even if you go along and you think, oh, I know all about nature, then, you know, we don't, because we all learn from different people, and you've got that wonderful insight of an ability to notice and help people to notice the simple things, like you say, how the breeze, you know, the feel of the breeze, and very subtle things. Yeah, it's wonderful. And there are a couple of other things that I know you're working on at the moment. The bee charter, uprising, and your weaving. Do you just want to briefly mention those?
Yeah, so so weaving, I love making stuff with my hands, and I've discovered basketry about 6 years ago or more, and so that is something that I do. I make baskets quite rustically, and sometimes using other things that I find in the woods to weave into them. And I've just been making a load with straps, so that when people come on our walks, we like to be magpies and collect natural treasures along the way, which then we will maybe make into a piece of art or an altar. So they will have a basket and two hands free rather than holding a basket. So having this over the chest strap. They're also great for foraging, so which is another collaboration I like to do with Myrtle, which brings me to Sap Rising, which is the name for this collective we've created. There's 4 of us women. There's Beth Heaney, who is interested. She's an artist, and she's particularly passionate about all things drawn and mark making, and that embodiment and feeling of mark making. And then there's Myrtle, who's an incredible forager, and her business, Wild and Curious Foraging, is again connecting us with our senses through nature and this relationship with plants, and their incredible nutritional and well, just that spiritual connection that you have with something living when you take it in. And then there's Sarah Gray, who is a somatics yoga practitioner and an incredible radio interviewer too. She works at Sound Art, and she's fascinating. So we've got all these different skills, and we're weaving together some ideas and projects for people. And one of the things that we're supporting is the Tree Charter, which is something that's an offshoot of the Woodland Trust. And it's about bringing trees and people together and valuing the importance of them. It was started off this one in 2017, but it's a I'm rubbish at remembering facts, so look up the tree chart on the Woodland Trust. But it has four basic aims or principles, and one of them is about well-being and people and trees. Another one is about how nature inspires us. Another one is about growing new trees, protecting habitats for all of the ecosystem that's around trees. And the invitation is to go to the Tree Charter page and sign it. And so our works are going to be about helping people build that relationship with trees and noticing these beings that are living right next to us, you know, out on our streets, that are often walked straight by, ignored, but provide a home for so many important beings that we're all connected to through our food chain, through the air we breathe, through the water. So that sort of wood wide web interconnection of being that is unseen, it's sort of bringing that to people's attention alongside the Tree Charter, and providing people with tools to feel good about themselves and well in a really strong way.
Wow, that sounds amazing work. And yeah, I so value the trees. They're such amazing friends, aren't they? And I can put the in the comments or in the description for this interview, I can put any links to the Tree Charter and other areas of your work as well for people to discover for themselves.
That would be great.
So it's been wonderful talking to you, Emma. And before we go, I just wondered if you'd like to share what your sort of message would be or mission would be for your work. I know that you mentioned about all of us being connected to nature, and what we can learn from nature. Is there anything else you want to say about what your hopes are for?
Yeah, so through my work as a forest therapy guide and with all the other aspects, it's building a relationship between people and nature, so that eventually, as that grows, like it does with anybody, it becomes a really, what's the word, obviously essential, and you see all the connections, and rather than it just being a resource, it is intrinsically part of your life. So and through the fun and the play and the invitations to just be, so it's not like it's complicated. It's a very simple thing. It's a very simple way of being, but it inspires such love that then we will care more for this incredible world that we live in, and look after it. And let it look after us rather than trying to control it and squash it.
Wonderful. Thank you ever so much. It's been a real joy speaking with you today.